Soul's overarching lesson is not okay. With the newest Pixar movie coming to the big screen, it's time to discuss what I think was a miss for Pixar in the overall lesson department. Soul is a masterclass on how to so carefully tiptoe past dark lessons that all meaning of these lessons are diluted by the time the credits roll. Although it has great themes, lessons, and qualities on the surface, a deeper look shows just how careless some of the messaging in this movie can be. Let's find out why a movie essentially about death fails to accurately depict it in a way that is suitable for children. That PG rating seems to be getting worse and worse. After that wonderful sounding intro, we meet our main character, Joe. Joe is a struggling musician who's currently a music teacher. The guy is not at all thrilled with life anymore. He disregards a lot of the small moments and sometimes life's bigger moments. Anything that's not related to music, he pretty much fails to invest in. Even when he's offered a full-time gig at the school, he doesn't want to take it at the risk of missing an opportunity to perform live somewhere. Luckily, this opportunity presents itself to Joe pretty quick. We see a music gig that he's offered and his family's reaction to that, but this is not a character study, so we're not going to go too far into that. I really just want to set up the stakes, which are nothing crazy. It's just a Pixar movie. Joe, who hasn't had music work with adults for a while, gets offered a gig at 9 p.m. this evening. Joe is very hyped for this, maybe too hyped. Combine a very excited Joe with his other careless qualities, and you get a character so removed from reality that he's living on the edge. One missed death, two instances of bad karma, and one last missed death for good measure, all lead up to Joe foolishly falling to his death. Whoa, okay, Pixar. This all sets up our stakes with the goal being Joe playing this evening. Problem is, he's dead. At this point, Joe is in a type of afterlife. All I'm thinking is that's got to be the earliest death in a Pixar movie, and I was almost correct. Rest in peace, Nemo's mom. As I watched an exaggerated blue Joe stare forward at Pixar's interpretation of the light, it is explained that essentially what these people are staring at is the closest we're going to get to death. The great beyond is what they call this mass, and I'm already getting frustrated. First off, do you really expect me to believe that Joe has bigger problems than staring death in the face? Why is this guy so concerned about his show at 9 p.m.? Like, I know that Joe's love for music is all we know about him, but there's absolutely no way he would not be at least freaked out about where he is. Considering in the last minute Joe went from walking on the street talking with his friend to standing on a floating moving sidewalk leading to a grandiose display of luminescence representing literal death in the middle of space, and Joe's just like, "But I've got a thing I have to do tonight." This is a big no-no lesson to teach. You should not be holding on to life for things as small as a gig. Luckily, this is the very start of the film. Surely there will be plenty of time for Joel to accept life in a different way and then be able to cross over to the great beyond. Yeah, kind of. Sitting here with the power of hindsight, the movie semi-succeeds in the changing Joel's way he lives department, but it ultimately fails to teach the more important lesson of finality. And we'll get to that later. Right here, I'll say that these all might seem like small complaints, and to be honest, they are and can be easily overlooked or just not cared about. I only mention all this to give context to one big problem in the very end of the film. It's a decision they make that I think is unforgivable. But for now, we are in the Great Before, which is where Joel falls into after jumping off the moving sidewalk. The Great Before has its own additions to the main poor lesson that this movie flaunts in the end. This realm, and Soul in general, is just so good at avoiding seriousness. On paper, there's a lot of moments that are super dark. Instead of playing into them, and of course, because this is a kids movie, the writers and animators do their best to add vibrant color and constant joking, making a constant, valiant effort to take the seriousness away. This would all be fine if they didn't do it for every single tough moment. When you have a very serious premise, you have to use the tougher moments to paint the theme in a way that it respects itself. Kind of like they do with this memory room thingy. Joe looks at a room showing every memory of his, and some he hasn't lived yet. This is a very hard moment to stomach, and it stays pretty much serious until a natural tone shift. Problem is, it is kind of saying that Joe wasn't supposed to die. I feel that already mocks death a little bit, bringing up the idea that you might get a second chance. In fact, that sometimes you're meant to have a second chance. This will all come back when we reach the crux of the issue, just in a second. As you know, if you've watched the film, there's even more serious moments that lack any respect for what's actually going on, like taking over the soul of a cat, effectively killing it. That's funny, I guess. Or taking the soul out of another person for a second. Stuff like this almost feels like the point of this movie is to mock souls rather than explain what they are or use them to teach lessons. The souls in The Great Before teach us a lesson that cannot be taken too literally either. Each soul has to find a spark to go live life. This solves the nature versus nurture argument for us. Basically, it's all predetermined nature. Plus, by framing life as a game-like process, find your spark, then go to Earth, Pixar risks making death and pre-life feel like a minor setback in an eternal bureaucracy, not a meaningful event. It is revealed later that the spark isn't just a passion checkbox that you need to fill, but instead a test of readiness, seeing if you can appreciate the small moments. This all makes the spark feel like a much less concrete goal, but I'll stop there because that's a whole nother bag of worms. All I can say is shifting from a purpose-driven spark to a broadened appreciation of life, although necessary, makes the central theme get lost along the way. If the spark is just about living, not achieving something specific, then the stakes of Joel's journey, his obsession with becoming a musician, feels a bit misaligned with the film's ultimate lesson, which finally is to appreciate the little things. Appreciating the little things is a great lesson, and it works throughout. The only thing is they try and use that theme as our vehicle back to Earth. This is not warranted, and it disregards an underlying theme this movie's had the whole time. Without beating around the bush any further, let's go to the ending and present why death feels so unserious in this movie. The final scenes of Soul depict Joe accepting his fate. The moment is a very special one, and I thought the movie was going to teach us the biggest lesson of all, something they had been poking at the whole time: acceptance of your outcome. As Joe goes up the moving sidewalk, Soul had the opportunity to top off a bunch of life-worthy lessons learned in a different realm. With Joel crossing over to the next stage, Joe has lived his life and completed the full circle by accepting his fate and moving on. All you have to do to end the movie is have Joel go through the great beyond. But sadly, again, in an attempt to shy away from seriousness, Joe is given a second chance. One last moment where Soul undermines the gravity of death and the afterlife in general, suggesting in any capacity that death is reversible or negotiable completely dilutes death's importance. This choice prioritizes a feel-good resolution over the finality of death. I see it as a lesson that you can go through life without seeing the little things, and in death, get a second chance if you want it badly enough. Soul's narrative preaches that death is a flexible plot point rather than a profound reality. You don't want to take away the weight of mortality in storytelling ever, at least not without a resolution or realization. A story where Joe accepts and crosses over into the great beyond would have modeled courage and closure, offering kids a more honest lesson about facing life's inevitable end while still valuing its beauty. Instead, the second chance ending leads into escapism, potentially taking the meaning out of death. Or maybe I'm overreacting. I mean, this is a kid's movie. And with that, thank you, Brecken. Specifically you, Brecken. And of course, to everyone else who watched this one, thank you. Yeah, I actually very much like this movie, despite what I brought up this whole time. This stuff does bug me. I've just seen it so many times that now it really, specifically the ending just stands out. Especially in earlier watches, the music's really good, and I appreciate the animation style a lot for Pixar. The blend of reality and what is, the afterlife / pre-life is just gorgeous. But yeah, I would shout out my Fresh Out the Film podcast, but we're not seeing a Pixar movie, so check the description. But I think that's about it. So, deuces.